Hi, it's Violet, and it's time for you to get everything you want, which, by the way, is already yours. Welcome to my channel. If you're listening, I know that you're here because you want to find ways to shift out of being anxiously attached and become more secure right now. So, if you're anything like me, you've probably scrolled on TikTok and seen the absolute wildness of the dating world, which seems to be a battle of anxiously attached versus the avoidance. And I'm making this video because I actually used to be anxiously attached, and it was absolute hell. I hated it. I thought that I would be that way for my entire life, and it was so uncomfortable being in a relationship with anybody because of my anxiety. But after dating an avoidant for 4.5 years, at some point I became securely attached. But this wasn't by accident. I was actually just really curious and I wanted to heal and I wanted to feel more empowered instead of disempowered. I was just like super uncomfortable and I felt emotionally chaotic and out of control in my body and in my mind. And it just got old for me, honestly. I wanted to change and I wanted to be happy and I wanted to feel more peace. But I didn't quite know how to release what was going on with me. So I didn't really want to feel like anyone's pawn anymore. I didn't want to feel easily triggered and just unable to control myself when there were moments where, my avoidant would disappear or he wouldn't communicate with me. So if you're here, I'm about to change your life. So let's get into it. Let's drop it down low and catch this flow because it's really good. So they say as anxiously attached people are also known as preoccupied. And avoidant is dismissive. And then there's disorganized, known as the fearful avoidant. And then there's secure, which everyone hopes to get to. So my dream would be that everyone would be secure. So you'd no longer feel drained in your relationships and maybe even choose a different type of partner that provides safety instead of anxiety. So they say that what causes anxiously attached people is an inconsistent parenting pattern. Now, when I think back to my childhood, I would say that my parents were pretty loving and supportive, but at times, because I felt so deeply and I was so emotional and things felt so big for me, I definitely felt like I was drowning in a tidal wave. And my parents would be like, well, it's going to get harder than this, and that comment made me strong, but it also made me bypass a lot of my feelings, which kind of set a pattern in motion where I would run from myself. And I didn't know how to like hold all of my big emotions because I didn't know how to self regulate. So I didn't want to be a burden on my parents. And I was also codependent and a people pleaser, but that's like a whole other story that I can tell you guys about. But so part of being anxiously attached means that you're basically preoccupied with other people and what they're doing while also abandoning yourself. And it's crazy because I used to actually think that avoidants were cowards. Like I would be so angry. I'd be like, why the fuck are you running? Like, what is your deal? And then it's so funny because, they would act like they wanted love and connection, but then they can't handle it and they'll just run away. But then, really, if you're being honest with yourself, when you're anxiously attached, you're also a coward and you're behaving in a cowardly way because you're trying to force closeness with someone while running away from yourself. So, if you really look at it and you really think about it, it's two opposites of the same coin, right? So, both are running. One's running from a person and one's running from themselves. And basically both are struggling to regulate their nervous system and feeling overwhelmed by their feelings. So it's interesting that like I feel like a lot of people will look out and be like, no, it's this person doing this and this is why I'm doing this. And it's like we don't have any power or control because we're choosing to make up a story about how this person's doing this. So how can you start winning? How can you start to feel good and get into a more secure state? That's really what I want to talk to you about today. Because this can easily be changed over time through repetition and it's like a muscle, right? You just start practicing it and it gets easier and easier. So first, you have to learn to be able to regulate yourself when you're feeling overwhelmed. I think a lot of anxiously attached people are deep feelers and have big emotions, right? We're like overthinkers. And so we can just get ourselves in this pattern of really feeling overwhelmed. But in order to regulate your nervous system, you could tap on your chest to calm your amygdala down. Or you could start looking out around the room and paying more attention. You could really start, just breathing and paying attention to your body. Because what really happens is like you float out of your body when you're overwhelmed. You may be someone who disassociates like I used to, where you're just not all there because it's too much to hold and it's too overwhelming. So focusing on your breath, or you could get up and go for a walk. Any tools that will help you regulate your nervous system are going to really start to get your arms around feeling anxiously attached. Because once you're regulated and you're calm, you're not going to feel as crazy as you were. And I've coached clients who have heavy anxiety, not even in relationships, but just by being alive. Like they're basically stuck in their heads and not in their body. They're processing their feelings and they're just going round and round and round in the stories that are generating more and more anxiety in their bottoms, in their bodies. So nervous system regulation's about a belief system, like you have to create a new belief system that's going to support safety as well as practices to support yourself. So some of the practices I talked about earlier, like tapping, looking around, going for a walk, like doing something that's going to help you regulate yourself. And usually when we're triggered and we feel overwhelmed by someone's behavior, we're just going to get stuck in a story, right? And you don't even know you're stuck in a story. You are just like so deep in it. You think, oh my God, why are they doing this? Why am I not good enough? What's happening? What's happening? You're just like building this momentum of fear and overwhelm and anxiety. And you have to get a fucking hold of the story and strangle it to the ground and be like, no, I am creating a new story. I am going to tell the best story. And the best story can be like, well, what can I learn from this? What's happening right now? Why am I feeling this way? Did something happen to me in the past? Do I enjoy feeling this way? Nope, I don't think so. Start talking to yourself and start just being aware of what is happening. You have to stop the story before it builds this giant momentum of anxiety. And if you want to create a safe mindset, it's going to look and feel like surrendering to what is, right? So I'm safe even when I feel overwhelmed and chaotic. I can regulate myself to a safe state by myself. And even if I can't, I can ask for help. But eventually I can hold me. I'm powerful enough to create safety for myself. What can I learn from what's happening? You also want to acknowledge how you feel. This is like a big part of it because basically running is what gives you the anxiety. The self-abandonment is what gives you the anxiety. The preoccupied state with somebody else gives you the anxiety. You can simply put a hand on your heart and say, I understand that I'm feeling X, Y, and Z, and it's okay. Or I understand that I'm feeling X, Y, and Z, and it may not be okay right now, but it will be okay. Because you have to really look at like how far you've come, like how many storms have you weathered. It doesn't matter if you give yourself anxiety or it takes a little bit of time to get through it. You got to start generating that safety in your body by being like, I know I can be okay. I can be okay because I have the power to be okay. And then the minute you stop self-abandoning yourself and you start self-acknowledging, you move into an empowered state. Immediately, you're on a whole different fucking level because now you're not running anymore. You're like, okay, well, I don't know if I'm okay, but I'm going to acknowledge what's happening. I'm going to stick with myself and then I'm going to move on from here, you know? And that's basically how it works. So the faster you run towards yourself, the faster the energy moves through your body and your mind. This is just law, right? Like, because if you try to hold on to it and you get attached, it will be stuck. But if you just let it move, you know, it's like babies, right? They'll like freak out and then 5 minutes later they're happy and they're not thinking about what happened. They're just moving the fuck forward. They're like, oh, whatever, I was upset. I don't even know. I'm just moving along. But what you resist persists and you cannot be empowered while ignoring yourself and running from yourself because your body will keep giving you anxiety and saying, look at me, look. And it seems like, I mean, years later, now that I'm secure, this seems so obvious to me. But at first, I would have never gotten this, like, oh, pay attention to myself, right? Like, I wouldn't know to pay attention, to acknowledge myself. Like, does anyone teach you this? Nobody teaches you this. But really, I think the bonus points would be gently starting to question how you cope. Why am I doing this? Why am I behaving this way? How am I thinking about this situation? Like, am I empowered or am I disempowered? And there's like a lot of power in patterns. If you can simply acknowledge them, you can begin to shift them. Like I remember one time realizing, well, I choose partners that act like this. And I use my partners to basically be distracted from what I know I actually need to do or being distracted from taking care of myself. And I remember being like, oh, fuck, this has been going on for like years. And this is really silly that I've been doing this. And like, yet I've still been doing it. Like, don't be ashamed that you have patterns that are taking long times to break because this is why we come in human form, to figure them out, to figure out like what's going to be best for us, to break through, you know? But when you're unconscious and you have no idea what you're doing or how you cope or like what your patterns even are, like you've never looked at your patterns of behavior, that means you've never taken the opportunity to reclaim your power. And if you don't look at those things and know what your patterns are, there's no way that you're going to heal or shift anything. But now if you start to just practice, like knowing that you can create safety in your body, being aware of that, you know, getting to the point where you have the tools that you're practicing and then building your belief system to support you feeling safe, no matter what situation it is, the levels of anxiety are going to go down. But if you're noticing that like you still have a lot of anxiety, maybe your diet may be an issue. And while I'm not a doctor and I don't give medical advice, you may have a gut health issue. You may need to see a doctor, but practicing these things should cut an insane amount of anxiety out because now you're like, okay, I feel safe because I can create safety. I have the power to reprogram my belief system to create more safety. And I can look at, life as an adventure. Like, what am I learning about myself, and be excited about it instead of being like dreading it. I think like we often dread stuff when we feel like we have no power, right? Because like nobody fucking wants to feel like they can't change something or they can't make it better, because that's like dread, and nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to keep like going through the same thing over and over again. So like I challenge you to stop that shit and cut it out. You don't have to keep repeating the same stuff. Because the minute you start to even be aware that you want to think differently, you want to behave differently, you want to generate a different frequency, different energetic in your body, make different decisions, your life will change. It will change immediately. Your reality has to reflect back your inner world and what's going on. So learn to sit with yourself, learn to regulate, and like also be kind to yourself, right? Like I know it feels like, I remember when I realized that I used people to distract myself from taking care of myself or doing what I needed to do. And I was like, this is so fucking stupid. Like, how am I doing this? And I felt bad about myself. I'm like, this has been going on for a lot of years. But I mean, no one comes with a manual. We're all on a different path. And it's really up to us to figure it out. And like, everyone has a different mission. Some of the parts are the same, but ultimately, nobody is you, and no one's experiencing your reality quite like you are. So, for one person, something could happen to me and I'll be like, oh, it's not a big deal. It could happen to you and it could fucking destroy you. And that's what you need to realize when people act like, don't feel so deeply, or don't think about it like this, or they don't know what your reality is like. Nobody knows what your reality is like. Only you know, because you're experiencing it. So you didn't get a manual. You just got to figure it out, and you're going to work it out. And I know that you're going to work it out, because I used to be like so triggered, right? And I'd be in silence with my partner and I'd be trying to force closeness so he could regulate me. I was looking for someone to regulate me. You know, that friend that always calls you up to talk about their problems because they're unregulated and they drain you to the point of you just feeling horrible? That was probably you at some point. That was definitely me at some point. But then you have to realize you are going to regulate you. There is no one to regulate you. This is like, you need to feel in your power. And I used to get so uncomfortable. I mean, fuck, I used to be like, if I was upset and we weren't talking, my whole world was upside down and it was discombobulated. Like I couldn't function. I would cry. I didn't want to get out of bed. Like I couldn't focus on anything but being preoccupied with the situation of that person. And now, like years and years later, I don't recognize that person. I'm nothing like the old me. But you can get here too by practicing this stuff. It seems complicated at first, but slowly you'll unravel all the pieces. And so, how do you improve your mindset? Well, getting a mindset that makes you feel safe can happen through affirmations, which you can write on your own for yourself, for your specific situation, like whatever you struggle with, whether it be self respect, using your voice, confidence, like maybe you have the wrong idea about relationships, like whatever it may be, write them out and then record them in a voice recorder and then listen to them every day, maybe twice a day. And then also you can use free subliminals on YouTube that will support your subconscious mind, because a lot of stuff happens from your subconscious mind that you don't even know. So it's always good to be reprogramming that as well. So when you program your conscious and your subconscious mind, and then you're also acknowledging how you feel and holding yourself and no longer running, you're creating a safe container for your mind and energy in life where you're like, okay, I can create safety regardless of what's happening in the world. And then you'll start to feel calmer and clearer and happier in no time. You will like not even recognize the old person that you were, because you'll start to feel so fucking empowered. And I think that when we become adults, it's our responsibility to create safety in our bodies and learn to regulate. And no one teaches you this. This is just stuff. Everything I'm telling you is strictly from my experience of like reading books and figuring it out, working on clients, doing sound healing, doing Reiki, just figuring out what my challenge was in this lifetime and how to overcome it. And, if you're looking to have an adult relationship, running from yourself or others is no longer an option, but healing is. And living in your highest timeline and being your best self is a choice that you can make. It's about repetition and realizing and questioning and moving differently. And a different life will never come from the same thoughts, the same behaviors, the same emotions, because this is law, right? It's like a domino effect. You're just creating the same thing to happen over and over again. So really look to your reality to see, what am I being shown? Like, how are people treating me? How do I feel most of the time? What am I thinking? Like, what decisions am I making? What do I believe to be true? And when you start like going through all of this, you start to become empowered because you're paying attention now. You're becoming conscious. And I think you really have to learn to be okay being alone. Be okay being alone from time to time. In a world where everyone's like, oh my God, my biological clock is ticking, and, work the 9 to 5 and work so hard and do this and do that. And like, we just find ourselves programmed with a bunch of bullshit, and we're confused about who we are because we didn't put any of this stuff inside of ourselves. So that's why it's important to consciously program yourself, because what happens is when you live in this world, you find yourself out of line with what your heart wants. How do you even tap into your heart and know what you want? And then you forget to move to your own rhythm. You're moving so fucking fast. It's all about this, that, and stress. And then you don't feel like yourself. And then you're like, oh, I'm not happy with my life. And it's like, these are the reasons why you're not happy. And there are times specifically, I can tell you, you'll be at a crossroads moment and the universe, spirit will purposely isolate you to help you heal or to help you learn a lesson that you need to get to the next level of the version that you're going to become. And you have to be okay being alone. And this is really like, being alone is a superpower that many will never master. And also, it's kind of a hard fact that some people can't come with us, right? Like, you have to accept that you're going to have to leave them behind, but you should never leave yourself behind for someone. That is sure. So learn to communicate and express when you need support, when you want and need emotional connection. Like, your needs are valid. It could be hard if you grew up like me and you were a people pleaser and codependent. You always put people first, but your needs are valid and you don't settle. So if someone can't meet your needs, then you need to move on. And that can be a hard fact, right? Like, when I was growing up, I was always like, oh my God, I just want everything to last forever, because like I thought if something lasted forever and people chose me forever, then I would be worthy. But that's the wrong way to think about it. You should be choosing yourself forever. Don't put it on someone else, because people are going to come in and out of our world, and that's just the way that it is. So, and I think it's important that we realize that we can actually break our own hearts and we can make ourselves feel like shit about ourselves because we're chasing someone and we're thinking like, why don't they want me? Like, I really want this. And when you become more secure, you realize that 99% of people will not be for you, especially because you're looking for that one person. It's one person. So a lot of the people in your life that you have experiences with are not going to be for you. It's like, I see a lot of people getting upset, like, oh my God, this keeps happening to me. Fuck yeah, it's going to keep happening to you, because you're going to get through a million people or a lot of people before you get to that one person that's your person. So all you can do is, if that's the fact of life, you can just enjoy the experiences you have with people and the moments you share with them, and just stop making your self-esteem and self-love predicated on whether or not someone wants you. You are worthy regardless of what happens. So whatever happened to you in the past, let that shit go. Tell a new story. Whatever happens to you in the future, your worthiness is not up for debate. You have to get strong in your convictions of how you love yourself and how you respect yourself and how you move on, and just realize like they weren't the one for you, because you need to keep choosing you and keep doing the work. So on piggyback to that, what I just said is, you should also trust your intuition. In relationships, any relationship, watch what people show you. The more secure you are and the more you don't feed into a potential fantasy, people will show you that they're available or not available. They'll show you that they're capable of meeting you where you want to be met. And if you start watching someone and they start leaving you on read for long periods of time, not answering questions, denying when energy changes, and it changed, something happened, gaslighting you, saying, oh, well, where did you come to that conclusion? And in your mind, you're like, I simply fucking watched your behavior. What do you mean? And it's like, we don't listen to our intuition, right? Because we want it to be the way we want it to be. But like, our body's always telling us, like, or if you have an argument and then they like ignore you the next day. And I could go on and on about the shit that people do. And many people see you as like a shiny toy that they can use, put you on and off a shelf, or they don't have the capacity to afford what it costs to be with you. They don't have the capacity to be regulated, honest, and consistent. And as you work on yourself, you need to stay the fuck away from people like this, because not everybody is doing the work. Not everybody has the big heart that you have. Like, you need to be like the hummingbird and just fly off fast as fuck. If somebody makes you feel like you're retracted inside yourself instead of expanded, if you're feeling like paused instead of flowy, or nervous and anxious instead of happy and joyful. Like, there are just so many things. And I'm not saying it's always them. Sometimes it's your shit. But your body is going to tell you. Your body will tell you, because energy never lies, and your mind has to catch up, but your body will always know. Because ultimately, no matter the game that somebody spins or whatever they do, you can't fake a fucking frequency. You just can't. And real grown-ups who are doing the work and who are available for you are going to admit like, oh, this was my fault, or I need to change the behavior, or yeah, that did happen. But unavailable people who are not doing the work, they're not interested in connecting. They're just not. So I would say, as you do the work, watch videos and like see what people are saying. Think about your own experience. But one thing you should definitely not do is, like, I see a lot of people saying like, like there's men who just hate women or women who hate men. And I think these people are dangerous because they tend to say all women or all men, which is the dumbest thing ever. And you can't get caught up in like other people's beliefs. You need to set the beliefs for your own reality. I saw this video where this chick's like, all men are this and all men are that. And I'm like, yeah, of course that's what you're experiencing in your reality because you create your reality and your belief is setting the stage for that. So if you think this is what it is, that's exactly what it's going to be. And that to me is like, so unconscious, right? And we've all done it. Like, I'm not judging. I'm just saying, like, be aware of your belief system because basically what's happening is you start getting into like groupthink and you start watching these videos and you get reprogrammed for bullshit. So never say all and don't look to your past to think about what's possible for your future and just really be conscious about what you believe is possible for a great loving experience. Like, what did you see your parents have? What do you see in the world? Like, what do you want for yourself? Like, make sure you have healthy beliefs. So, and build your self esteem, your self respect, and your confidence. Work on yourself. Mirror work is very helpful for this, as well as, like I said, subliminals and affirmations are a daily part of my life. And another way to become aware of your programming and patterns is to just start asking the questions, like, how do you act at the beginning of a relationship? Do you think that a relationship and a person is going to be this like a magically changing thing that if you're chosen, it's going to just change your entire life? And it shouldn't be like that, right? A lot of us are like, oh my God, I'm going to meet the one and everything's going to change. But you have to be able to give yourself the love and feel what you want to feel alone. And then you will not need it. You will want it. There is like a huge difference because needing nothing will attract everyone and everything to you. And you need to become full in who you are and where you're at. Don't be desperate for anything because desperation will repel. That energy is not magnetic at all. And really just work on people for seeing who they are, what they show you instead of fantasizing about the potential. Most people are on their best behavior for the first 90 days, so don't attach easily. Take your time. And anyone running or rushing intimacy is not truly available and just wants something from you. And as you pay attention and become more calm and truthful in what someone's showing you, you will make better decisions. If connecting with someone makes you feel anxious, your body is telling you the truth. And you need to listen. Your intuition will always keep you safe. And I guess I would say, as I end this video, one of the most empowering things I learned is detachment. Detachment can feel challenging when you've always tried to hold on to people and stories and things, but there's a plan for you, like a divine order. And sometimes you're going to get bigger and better than you even thought was possible. So, loosen up and surrender a little bit because you need to be able to open the space for the new to enter. And sometimes what you want isn't the right thing. You want it maybe for the wrong reasons. Or, as you're working on yourself, people will move in and out of your reality as you change your frequencies. And a lot of people are just trying to recreate childhood experiences so they can heal from them. That's why we attract like the same partners with the same behaviors over and over again, And we look to reality to see what our aura and mindset is broadcasting. And then we can go from there. Like, what are you telling the world? What is the world showing you? What does your reality look like? What would you change? But that's all I've got for today. And if you're interested in working with me, drop me an email at v@violetblack.com. I look forward to helping you live your best life, whether it's healing, relationships, empowerment, whether you need sound healing, Reiki, whatever it is, I got you. And I hope this was really helpful. And remember this when it feels like chaotic. If it comes, let it. If it goes, let it. You need to live your best life and let no one and nothing stop you. I'll see you soon. Love you. Bye.